So if we don't want to have this situation where we have inequality and we need to redirect our steps away from the rich getting richer and then the poor getting poorer, what's your thought on having regulations and that are feasible, that are realistic to correct this trend? Because like she has rightly said, there are schools that are also not delivering on all of these promises. And at the end of the day, you churn out people who can't even communicate properly.
Corruption. Because I know that some inspectors have gone to some schools and they give them money and they look away. So even in the educational sector, there's corruption. It's a big problem. Because at the end of the day, if every agency was doing what they were supposed to be doing, education will not be where it is today.
But let me also bring the thought to the earlier conversation we had about schools and special needs schools in Nigeria and having the inclusion of children with special needs in mainstream education now. Private schools also offer, we see some schools offering these facilities in their schools, but the public schools don't have any of those.
They don't.
So how do we also then try to redirect that step as well to ensure that we have this inclusion and we have a stronger sense of understanding of how these children are and what sort of education we should be given? Because at the end of the day, the whole multiplicity of the schools that we have isn't the solution.
It's not the solution. Now, what do we have? We have what we call access. What do I mean by access? Even the public schools that we have right now, do they have ramps? They don't. Now, the teachers that are in the classroom, are they trained to be able to handle those kids? They're not. So for us to be able to include our children in the public schools, they have to be, I don't want to say a complete revamp, but something has to be done. Now, there must be training. There must be access for the students. There must be wheelchair ramps. They must have lifts. Because at the end of the day, if we're talking about a child going to primary 6, for example, and primary 6 is in the 3rd floor, how is the child going to get there? There was a school that invited me, it's a private school, that invited me to come and observe and assess a student. The child has CP, cerebral palsy, and his class was on the 3rd floor. It was amazing how they had to lift this child. It was so painful. They had to lift him to take him to the 3rd floor. But by the time we did the assessment and everything, and I had to say to them that, look, his class has to be on the ground floor. And they did make those things. They had the ramp put in place. But how many schools that's a private school. That's not a public school. So for us to be able to educate our children with disabilities, the government has to do a whole lot. And it has to start with, number 1, the training of the teachers. Number 2, we have to have access. And then number 3, education. Because I've seen situations where I've been in the program. I was in a training where I had to mention special education. And immediately, one principal, the owner of the school, said, oh, that population, they're so troublesome. And immediately I said, that's your perception. If at the end of the day, you that is the head of the school, you think that educating children with special needs is a problem, you can already know that even the teachers will not have anything to do with the child. I've been in some schools where we talk about inclusion. The children are all in the classroom, but that child that has special need is by the side with the facilitator. Even the teachers are not talking to them, talking to the child. So I've been to schools where I have to actually go to the teacher, go to the classroom and say, please include the child. If it's just for social skills. Oh, madam, he would not even understand. I know he does not understand, but what about social skills? What about PE? What about music? What about art? We're not talking about math, English here, or science. We're just talking about basics. That child should be able to socialize. And then I've been to another school where the child has been put on one side, and even the children are not even talking to the child. So it's a huge problem.